On this edition of the 5-Star Podcast of Wrestling, myself and Justin Lowery will talk about AEW's Double or Nothing, a big debut, a big involvement from a WWE Hall of Famer in AEW, as well as the week that was in the WWE. That's all to come on this edition of the 5-Star Podcast of Wrestling. Hey there, back in the saddle again. I am your host, Sean Meyers, joined by one Justin Lowery. Justin, how the heck are you doing tonight?
I'm doing amazing.
Love to hear it. I'm really excited to have you on the show this week in particular because it's a big AEW week. And there's a number of reasons for that. One, last Saturday was, I would say, their big pay-per-view of the year. I know it's kind of hard to say that because the company hasn't even really been around in a weekly basis for a year, but things really started with Double or Nothing a year ago at this time, right? So that was their big pay-per-view. That happened on Saturday. I know it's actually one that you didn't see, but you're well invested in the company. And then the bigger news to me is to fall out on Wednesday with a debut of formerly The Revival. And then I mentioned a WWE Hall of Famer. I think that's correct, right? Mike Tyson, I'm pretty sure is in the WWE Hall of Fame. Well, now it looks like he is in a big-time storyline in AEW. So first we'll start with the pay-per-view. You didn't have the opportunity to see it, but what was the takeaways? What did you take out of at least the results and what you heard from that event?
Great things. Actually, just about an hour ago, I guess they released some of the numbers, and it looks like the buys are pretty much a success. Looks like from BNR Live and Fit TV, they have over 110,000 buys estimated, and that's not including what they got from cable. Cable won't be as much as that, but all in all, that's a complete success. It's up from their last pay-per-view, even without any fans in attendance. So that's a good sign. That means people went out and paid their money to support the promotion, so that's good to see. I thought the Stadium Stampede match, I ended up being able to watch that after the fact online, so I did watch that. I thought it was up there with what WWE produced.
So this is yeah, like you said, it's sort of a pre-produced cinematic type feel, yeah. But it's also like not just a pure wrestling match by any means. It was like a just throw everything together type of deal.
Yeah, I guess
like hardcore vibes, hardcore match vibes back in the day at all.
Oh yeah. I guess they filmed it they started filming at 9:00 at night till 6 a.m. So they pull it's
a long night.
Yeah, an all-nighter to film it, and plus we got the return of Matt Fax. So I know that's close to your heart. And
Sean Fax were a big thing for a long time. Really, yes. I think they originated on Instant Messenger. And once that sort of disappeared, I had to find other avenues and outlets for it. But
maybe MySpace. Is MySpace one?
I don't. I feel like I did it on Twitter. Maybe I don't know. Either
Facebook
way,
for sure.
Yeah. Either way, it was V1. That was probably my favorite version of Matt Hardy. And I'm not the only person that thinks that. But it seemed like a really fun match, and it seemed like it was well received. This is something that, in your estimation, AEW does better, like the humor / the fun type of stuff.
Yes. Yeah, well, that's because the WWE's version of humor is like 7-year-old poop jokes.
Sort of compare this to the Money in the Bank, since you saw both.
From the cinematic, what WWE did, this is either first or second. This and the Undertaker AJ Styles match, to me, are pretty much neck and neck. You can make an argument maybe one's one, one's two, but either one is one or two. The Stampede match is definitely better than Cena and Bray, and definitely better than Money in the Bank, in my opinion. To me, Money in the Bank is dead last, in my opinion. So I thought it was entertaining. There was also some pretty nice and crazy spots. I thought even the football entrances at the beginning of the match, it was like, it was entertaining. They did different things. you got people jumping off goalposts and stuff. Like, they use the stadium to their advantage. I guess it's one of the benefits of the owner, being the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Right.
You're taking advantage of something that WWE can't give you.
So what else was notable from that show? I know that Brody Lee, Luke Harper, Dean Ambrose, John Moxley, whatever you want to call them, they met for the title. And I know that there was a lot of people that were sort of down on that just because it's like no one would have cared really in WWE about that match. But it seemed like it came across as pretty good performance from. I always thought that Harper was a terrific performer. Maybe not a star, but he can certainly deliver in the ring. There's never been that doubt.
My issue with that is I thought it was maybe a little too soon. Right. I would like to protect the character of Brody Lee a little bit longer, because I didn't think there was no way he was going to win that match, which he didn't. And it's almost like a Bray Wyatt situation. A new character, you want to keep him hot. You don't want him to lose so quick out of the gate. The right call was made. Moxley needs to hold the belt for right now. We got a new women's champion out of the night, which was a little surprising to me. But I'm happy for that. Unfortunately, Britt Baker got hurt on Dynamite the Wednesday before, so she got pulled from the show. You basically had AEW's version of Money in the Bank open the show.
And that's with the roulette chip or whatever.
And the winner gets a future title match. Now, it's not like you can cash it in wherever you want. It's a straight up match. So it's a little different, but basically the exact same concept.
Right. So that takes us into the fallout on Wednesday, and the numbers are out in AEW. Really, both AEW and NXT did much better, but AEW won by a pretty decent margin. I think that's sort of expected based on them coming off of this big show and then having Mike Tyson on it. So let's talk about that. Tyson was there too. Excuse me. He was there to hand out the TNT title belt at the pay-per-view, but that carried over into Wednesday. So looks like he's now involved in a storyline with Chris Jericho. What do you anticipate going forward, and what's your thoughts on this? Because, as you know, my take already, this is sort of a double-edged sword for AEW because you get maybe more casual fans, but do you compromise what the company was sort of built on from the start?
Well, you got to build on your hardcore base, right? But I think the history of wrestling shows you need more than just a hardcore base. If a hardcore base was enough to succeed, then ECW would still be here. We've seen, Ring of Honor, is a pretty hardcore base, but without casual fans coming in, you could only get so high. We've seen that with TNA / Impact Wrestling. And to me, I don't think people are going to give backlash because it's Mike Tyson. If it was Kim Kardashian, I think that would be a different story. But Mike Tyson is still cool, even, at 50 years old.
Because he's been involved in a lot of stuff, and I think we talked about this before. He's still seen. He hasn't disappeared after his boxing career ended. Right,
and he's done like movies. He's been in the Hangover movies, and people have loved his little scenes. And young people 15, 16, they still know who Mike Tyson is. And now there's rumors that he might box again. So
that seems like a bad decision.
Well, it is, but guess what? People would watch. So that's the thing, though. Like, people would watch.
In a sense, people would watch Shawn Michaels wrestle, too. But that doesn't mean that it's good.
Well, right. People did watch, and it went horrible. So, it's lesson learned. If you told me Mike Tyson was boxing, I would be tempted to get the pay-per-view. Maybe if I had people to go in on it, I wouldn't want to pay the whole $70, but I would go somewhere and watch it. I personally would.
Well, let's take that to AEW. Are you going to be interested in him versus Chris Jericho in what would probably, I suspect, be a wrestling match or some semblance of such?
I don't think it would be like, a true wrestling match. It would be gimmicky. It would have to be, because Mike Tyson's not a wrestler.
Right, but I think that they would promote it as a wrestling match as opposed to a boxing match.
Probably. Look, they took their highest, guy. Like they took Jericho, who's probably most widely known, right, in that promotion that most people would know. You put him with Mike Tyson, and what did they get? They're all over ESPN the next day. That's what they wanted to do. You ride this out through the summer, and I think All Out in September would be the next one. I guess there's Fyre Fest, which they haven't set a date for yet.
Those were like sort of the free pay-per-views, which is contradictory, but they had a couple. They also had a Fight for the Fallen, right?
Yes.
And neither one of those you had to pay for on pay-per-view.
Right, they were free. I don't know if the Fyre Fest will be free again, or it will be paid. But last year I think that took place in like July. So I mean, I don't know. I know they're going to do it. They did not announce where and when. Probably because they're waiting to see if there's a place where they can hold it with fans, and we're kind of trending in that direction. So I can see that's why they're holding it out. I would wait to All Out, because that's another kind of big pay-per-view. That's what started before AEW was even a thing. That's what kind of started the idea when they held just kind of that indie,
which
pay-per-view.
At the time was All In.
All In, you're right.
Yes.
And it was just, basically the biggest indie stars, Ring of Honor, New Japan. They just pulled everybody together who's not WWE and put them on a show, and it was a success. I'll be interested, especially with Mike Tyson. You never know what he's going to say or do in the ring. He's awkward.
So I didn't see the whole segment, but I saw clips where it's like he looked like he wasn't taking it seriously, even though I know he's a true wrestling fan. That was told back when he worked with Stone Cold and DS.
I think he's so much like a kid out there. He's like, yeah, like I'm out here. This is fun. I think he's legitimately enjoying himself, but he doesn't know how to act like he should. He's not playing the character.
Do you remember Alonzo Ball's dad?
Alonzo Ball? What about him?
Do you remember when he was on Raw?
Yes.
He was sort of like, he did stuff to make people interested, but he also was sort of like ridiculous to the point where it's like, this guy's having fun. He's making entertaining, but he's also not taking it seriously.
Do you remember when the Jackass guys were on and Steve-O?
They no-sold, I think, was Umaga?
Umaga, right. And he's a big wrestling fan, but he was having so much fun. He was no-selling, and next thing you know, he's getting stiff for real because he wouldn't stay down. Who was another one? Who got powerbombed by Kevin Owens? Was it like Machine Gun Kelly?
Yes.
Who took a powerbomb and basically no-sold that? So I mean, sometimes the fanboys get kind of lost, and the excitement gets the better of them.
So I thought that the Revival were going to go to AEW all along. I think most people realize that. There was also part of me that thought maybe they would debut at a pay-per-view, or if they were going to eventually have fans back and make it a big show just to return, to that on TNT. But instead they have them debut this past Wednesday. One, I think the timing, in my estimation, is a little confusing. But how did it come across? What do you expect from them? Because this is a team that in-ring is super talented. But I think when you look at them, you don't necessarily see, game changers. At least that's my take.
Well, let's wait and see here. I mean, they were pretty damn good in NXT. Let's see.
Again, in ring, I think they're up there with the New Day and the Usos as the very best in that company.
Let's see what they can do on the mic and stuff with the freedom they're going to have creatively, in AEW. Let's wait and see here. Eventually, when they do face the Young Bucks, I think the match is going to be amazing. Two different styles of wrestling, and I think it's going to mesh really well.
And I told you, at least at the start, there was pretty legit animosity between them. That might have changed quite a bit since then, but at the time...
Some of the best feuds start like that, that people legitimately, have tension between, each other. I thought they might hold off until there was a crowd again. The problem with that is nobody really knows when that's going to be.
Right.
So are you going to hold them out for 2 months, 3 months, 4 months? That's the problem there.
I don't think that would be terrible if you said, hey, August 1st is when the fans will come back. I would probably say, I would hold them until then.
I would hold them out to the first show with fans so you can get that pop. Now, maybe they looked at it, they already had Tyson advertised. So they were probably thinking we're going to have more eyeballs watching, which they did. Let's debut these guys because we think more people will be watching this week with Tyson. And maybe if they're WWE fans that really don't watch too much AEW or whatever, or they're NXT fans that are watching AEW this week for Tyson or whatever, oh, they're going to see that's the revival. Oh, that's cool. Like, these guys are here now. I want to see next week what's going to happen with them. So maybe they were trying to gain a couple fans, think with their thinking like that.
There was a thought that maybe Drew Gulak would go from SmackDown one week to AEW a couple of days later. That seemed like a possibility because when I did the show, I believe it was last week, basically the word came out that after he wrestled and lost to Daniel Bryan, his contract was up and he did not resign. However, things have changed. He was on SmackDown tonight. So I think there was less than a week where he was sort of in that purgatory where he wasn't under contract, could have technically gone elsewhere. They ultimately agreed to a deal with him. One, seems like this is a guy trending in the right direction, so it made sense to keep him. But he probably got a little bit more than what the initial offer was that he fielded. So it looks like probably everyone wins in this scenario.
Yeah, it seems like the company wanted to keep him and he wanted to stay.
I don't know that would have been the case 6 months ago. I think Daniel Bryan deserves some credit because his major responsibility is getting guys over, and he's done that with Drew Gulak on SmackDown.
Yeah, and I mean, from all intents and purposes, everything I read, as soon as he became a free agent, promotions did call him, like any promotions, to book him for future events, and he never accepted any bookings because it sounded like he knew he would go back there. It just sounded like they were negotiating. Contract ran out. They just kind of ran out of time, but just kept negotiating and, re-signed, kind of like an athlete who's going to be a free agent. They try to sign him. He becomes a free agent, but re-signs with the team anyway. It happened.
And maybe he spent that few days and found out that he wasn't going to get as much money as he had hoped from other. Now,
maybe he reached out to other promotions, and either they said they weren't interested, or at the time we can't offer you anything. And he's like, you know what? This is the best deal I'm going to get, and I'm going to take it.
Right. And there's so much tampering in wrestling. Like, I'm sure that AEW or whatever, if they knew that his contract was going to be up, they had some way of conveying that to him. Maybe have the Revival shoot him a text or Luke Harper shoot him a text. But in terms of actually getting a contract offer, I would think that would only come once.
Well, yeah. Well, you tell me the more guys that jump ship to AEW, the guys that are still there aren't texting those guys going, hey, what's it like over there? Is it really better? How's the money? Hey, right. Should I, that's happening.
So that was tonight on SmackDown. He was involved. Not a big role, but again, we'll see what happens with him. It seems like he at least has a decent mid-card spot. But I think the big takeaway from SmackDown was how the show opened. Very controversial. They have Elias injured from the get-go. I'll get into that momentarily. And then we see Jeff Hardy drunk in a bush, it appears. Basically, it was pretty obvious that he was like being framed in storyline purposes, that someone had planted like booze near him and whatnot. But this is playing off of a real life story and a recurring issue for Jeff Hardy throughout his life that is well documented. And it's sort of exploiting that, I should say, exploitation, because they are playing up the fact that he has had drug and alcohol problems. Do you have a problem with this?
I'm not going to go like all the way and say, oh my God, I have a problem with it. Do I like it? No. But do I have a problem with it? No. We've seen them do this with Jeff, 10 years ago, was it, when, he had a feud with CM Punk. We've seen WWE do it with Hawk. We've seen WCW do it with Scott Hall.
I remember thinking how awful it was at the time with Hawk. And that was, we were like 13, 14 at the time, and they were doing a lot of crazy, wild stuff. And I just remember thinking, like, why are they doing this? Like, this is just uncomfortable.
Right. And I mean, I don't think it's really necessary, especially in today's climate, and addiction's a very big deal. And there's a lot of issues going on in the world right now. And, overdoses are extremely, high right now.
And we go back and the storyline with Hawk, well, he ended up dying a handful of years later. He never really got over it, and that's, I think, that the major risk here is what if Jeff Hardy does. I mean, it was pretty recent. It was like, what, 2018, early 19 that he got arrested for, I think, drunk driving. So this is not even 2 years in the rearview mirror. If he does have a relapse, it'll look way worse for this company, I think.
Yeah, I mean, clearly he probably said okay, with it. I don't think it was probably his idea. They probably came to him with it. Hey, we're going to do this, or you cool with it? Yeah, sure, whatever. I mean, this is the same guy who, when he was with TNA, was so effed up, had to go to the ring, couldn't wrestle, and basically Sting had to hold him down and pin him just so the championship match could take place. Like, I mean, it was a joke. I mean, the guy has his demons. I mean, hopefully he's beat him for good. Time will tell, but I just don't think it's necessary. I saw some polls on Twitter, people asking if they're for or against it, and it seems like most people are against it. I
think like you could do something that's still interesting without exploiting that. They were building up his comeback story, so I understand why they're doing this, because they're going to pin it on Sheamus or whoever, and it's going to be like, well, it wasn't Jeff. Jeff is still sober, still on the comeback trail. Someone trying to exploit that. So it's like a movie where you have to get that villain even more vilified. But to me, there's ways that you could just avoid that, because people like Jeff Hardy no matter what. I don't think you need to do this to make it interesting to fans. That's kind of my take on it. I felt the same way about, like, did they really need to use Natty's father's passing as a storyline? Did it really make that much of an impact?
No. And what they brought up, what Reed's death, what Paige did to Charlotte.
Well, I think they scrapped that pretty quickly.
They did, but that was another one that was like, a little, that's what WWE does, though. They take something personal and they try to.
Wrestling does.
Well, true. I mean, that's the name of the game, right? They even did that with Roman's leukemia. They kind of, they did it when Lita cheated on Matt Hardy. They paired her and Edge, and it got pretty damn big. It's what wrestling does. I mean, if you're offended easy, you shouldn't watch wrestling, because wrestling could easily offend people.
Right, but WWE has clearly made a shift over the past decade to getting rid of a lot of that stuff. They don't have the severe violence that they used to, at least in terms of blading and things of that nature. They've made it a more PG show. So I think when everything is sort of extreme and edgy, okay, but now this really stands out because most of the stuff is a little bit more tame.
Oh, yeah. I mean, every once in a while I'll throw in a little bit of edge now. Which you
said in the past you want more of. It is a difficult balance for sure.
Oh yeah, there's ways you can be edgy, but you don't have to do it with Jeff Hardy's drunk in the car again. I mean, technically, then if that's the case, he committed a crime, and he should be arrested and put in jail.
He was at the beginning of the show, but inexplicably he was able to make it back before the show.
It's funny how in all wrestling shows you can get arrested at the beginning of a show, but you're always back by the end of it.
Hey, he had his attorney there, and he was, he was ready. Everyone was ready for this. So, without getting into too much details, Elias now out of the Intercontinental Tournament. This is the second straight tournament he's been in that he's had to ultimately leave prematurely due to injury. What happens with him now? Seems like maybe he could be out for a while. It's so difficult to continue to build momentum when they have these absences. And remember, there was twice in the span of about 2 months where they had injury angles with him and Corbin leading up to the WrestleMania match, and then him returning at Money in the Bank to attack Corbin. So he spent more time off TV than he has on TV here in 2020. It seems like that's difficult to really build up because, let's be honest, like Samoa Joe, who had some issues regularly wrestling on TV, he's now a commentator.
I mean, WWE has proven if they believe you're injury prone, they will, throw you down the card or try to find a different role for you. Samoa Joe now seems to be a permanent fixture on commentary. They might not clear him.
But with Elias, we know a few of those were storyline absences.
Right.
It just seems weird to book it like that.
There's people like Daniel Bryan who didn't wrestle for a couple years and came back. Alexa Bliss, most short term was almost like a year back and forth. Maybe couldn't wrestle. She came back.
Yeah, that's true.
Went back out again,
and now it seems like she's been good.
Right. So it's not these injuries I hit of Elias's aren't concussions. They're not head injuries, which is good. But are they freak injuries? Are they injuries that they just happen, bad luck? Or is there some, like certain football players seem like they're always hurt, or is it something?
You live in Pittsburgh, Justin. You could speak to that, certainly.
Oh, James Conner, he's buff right now, but by week 6, he's going to have a knee, an ankle, and a hammy.
But with Elias, he's so good even without wrestling that I feel like, okay, if you don't want him wrestling every week, that's fine. But when you take him off of TV, whether for legitimate or illegitimate reasons, you're losing a main attraction that can entertain in a number of ways, and you can't say that for a lot of guys. That's where I think they've messed up.
True. I mean, the only, I guess, thing you got to worry about there is how much can you do with him on a weekly basis if he's legitimately hurt, seriously hurt, where he can't get physical. He can only sing so many songs, do so many stuff before it's like, okay. And how long would he be out? Are we just talking a month? Then sure. If we're talking 6 months, that's
a good point. But you brought up Alexa, and to me, like, she was always on TV. Now, there was a long time where she didn't wrestle, but they always kept her on. She was always in front of people because she created ratings, she created interest. When you have talented people like that, I get like, okay, you don't just want him singing each and every week with no build to something, but it seems like that's the type of guy for a company that's really hurting with stars that needs to be in a prominent role at every possible turn. Well, when he's seriously injured, okay, you have to take him off for a while, but otherwise get him on there on a weekly basis.
Yeah, I mean, do you? I don't know. Is it gonna everybody gets a talk show? Freaking give them a talk show. Everybody gets a talk show, for crying out loud.
Do you remember MVP's talk show, Justin? The VIP Lounge.
Yes, a little vaguely. I can't say that it's
he has it every week on Raw. I know you're not really tuning in. But,
Raw and SmackDown are a little hard to watch for me nowadays.
Well, the numbers reflect that.
Yes.
I'm going to be honest. I think, and I haven't really watched AEW, but I think all forms of WWE, including NXT, have been hard to watch because, like, I'm watching it, but I'm kind of just like, because the matches have no intensity, there's no environment, no atmosphere. Now, they did bring back, I'm sure you saw that they have the plexiglass and everything.
Oh, no, I've seen that.
I don't really think it changed the experience for me.
Me either. Now, here's the thing. I've said on the show, AEW throughout this pandemic has done better, and I still believe that. Even their crowd, their interactions, I like it way better. Now, am I a hypocrite because I'm like, well, no, the WWE has a crowd, and I'm saying it's not doing it for me? Well, here's the thing with that is, first off, the plexiglass, it makes me feel like I'm about to watch a hockey game. Okay? I can't. It's maybe because it's new. Maybe I'll adjust to it.
Do you think that might be a thing that they keep in place when fans come back?
I do.
I think that's why they did it here, because they want that to already be established.
Right. Is it safer for the wrestlers? Absolutely. I mean, you're not going to be able to have people go into the crowd.
It's not, you know what, but in this scenario, when they have, like, paid employees there, I don't really get it, because, like, if they're about social distancing and health and stuff, they had a battle royal tonight, okay?
Right.
They had a break apart brawl on Monday with McIntyre and Lashley. So, like, you can't selectively pick when you want to follow the guidelines.
That's going to be my next thing. Like, they have everybody standing 6 feet apart, and they mention, we're practicing social distancing. I feel like you're trying to, you're not really doing it in the ring, but look what we're doing out here. In AEW, they're sitting right next to each other. They're also running storylines within the audience. Give me that. I don't give me, NXT, trainees standing 6 feet apart.
I would just say commit one way or the other. If you're going to commit to to honoring the social distancing and everything, then you can't have everything that they've done for 2 straight months in the ring.
Right. Well, no. Then if you're going to honor that, you can't even have wrestling matches. Right. To the point. I mean, you're either all in or you're all out.
Right.
Like you can't have your toe in the water. And they're trying to have good PR. Look what we're doing over here, but you're still doing all this over here. And those people that are social distance, they're in there training anyway. They're all wrestling with each other. I mean, they're all in there. They're all interacting. So it's just for show for TV. But let's be honest.
So a couple other takeaways from Raw, NXT, and SmackDown. Apollo Crews won the U.S. title on Raw. And I mentioned MVP. I was going to transition because MVP, it seemed like, was going to be his manager. He loves to smile, Justin.
I know. Yeah.
I know we've talked about him, and we've given Apollo Crews way more airtime than most people probably, including WWE for many, many years. But I think it's so interesting because, to me, this is a story of what could be with WWE. This is a guy that he wasn't greatly used at NXT. Like, he was impressive down there, but he wasn't in major storylines. He never got like a title feud or anything like that. And then he quickly came up to the main roster and he did nothing for years, like 3+ years. He did nothing. Seemed like that could be a guy that they absolutely would release. They didn't. He comes to a new show, and it looks like, if you want to give credit to Paul Heyman, I think that's probably fairly accurate. He goes from being an absolute nobody to having a 30-minute match his first night on the show. You kept saying, is it going to last? It's going to last. Well, we're a couple months in, and it's lasted so far. He's now a champion. And if you would have told me that in February, I would have never believed you. So would you give credit for them doing something right here, or is Apollo even a guy that should be a champion in your estimation?
I mean, the way he's been used, take away that I know that they're in charge of how people get used. If I'm just a fan and I'm watching it, I would think there's no way this guy should be champion. But as somebody who kind of understands how it works, I think he has the ability, the athleticism to be champion. He has zero character. He has zero personality.
I think that they should have done something drastic and then made him into a champion after turning him heel or giving him a manager.
Or once he won the championship, cut a heel promo. Completely change character or something. Like, become a jackass because you're champion now. Like something like the happy-go-lucky. Everybody hates that. When The Rock debuted, he was Rocky Maivia. Die Rocky Die chants happened because he would come out to the ring smiling, yay, everything's great, yay. Nobody likes that. It's 2020. Like, nobody wants to see that.
But here's the difference. The Rock had the ability to be a great talker as a heel.
Right.
We don't think that Apollo does.
No, Apollo has no promo skills. I think that's evident.
That's why someone like MVP, I think, is absolutely perfect.
Should manage him.
And and MVP has done a great job with Bobby Lashley.
Why can't, especially, WWE likes to take things that are going on in the world, right? Controversial things, and use them, right? Why not have MVP, Lashley, Apollo Crews, maybe somebody else, almost form like a new nation?
Well, do you know what the main event was for Raw? Did you catch it?
No.
It was MVP tagging with Lashley against the Street Profits. And someone said, is this the first all-black main event? And maybe there was like a one-on-one, but as far as like 4 guys in it, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know.
The New Day could have been involved with some teams, but it does seem like that's sort of progress. That being said, there's no doubt that a guy like Bobby Lashley or the Street Profits, they're not quite as credible as some of the other top guys that Vince probably prefers, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, ever since Lashley's come back, he has the look, but I mean, he's been kind of treated like a joke. I mean, come on. He was freaking in a storyline with Lana. Lana brings anybody down. For the love of God, stay away from Lana.
NXT had the Matt Riddle farewell, I guess it looks like, because he's going to SmackDown. He was in like a cage match, but this wasn't like a steel cage match. This was like a MMA cage. Do you like this? It's something completely different.
Yeah, sure. I have no problem with that. I mean, I like it. I like a little bit more realism. We've seen steel cage matches for decades. They're kind of a little played out. Yeah, why the hell not change it up a little bit? I like it.
Is Matt Riddle a guy who's going to succeed on the main roster?
I don't know. You're asking the wrong guy because I hate him. I know might get flack because a lot of people love him, and then
I'm just sort of like I like him, but I don't love him by any means. I think there's some like the RVD vibe is fine with me, but I think sometimes they play it a little too far. Like him and Pete Dunne.
Oh man,
yeah,
bro, I hate him. Can't stand him. So I mean, there's an opportunity.
If you were a promoter of a company, though, would you?
Oh yeah, I would use him. Yeah, actually, I would kind of almost use him as a heel. Here's the thing: it's going to be hard to know who's getting over and what's going to work with no fans. That you could put Apollo as the heavyweight champion,
and that's why I think Apollo is a champion right now. I don't think that would happen with fans.
No, like honestly, I think Drew McIntyre is doing a great job as champion. But honestly, we really won't know until there's fans back in the arena and we see what type of reaction he's getting.
Same with Strowman.
Yes.
Any final thoughts for this past week, Justin?
You know, another week of wrestling, another week of, WWE's ratings, especially Raw, just crap. But we saw improvements on Wednesday night on both shows, both up pretty significantly in the ratings, so that's good. Guess we'll find out tomorrow what SmackDown did in the ratings.
Probably about 8 million, I would think, right? 8 or 9 million.
If this was 1999, that would be combined. Real quick, I mean, think about that. During the height of the Attitude Era, the Monday Night Wars, combined, there was like 10, 11 million people watching wrestling. Now on a Monday night, you're getting like 1.6. Where the hell did all those wrestling fans go?
They're watching Netflix shows, apparently, Justin.
I mean, I understand that because I'm in the same boat.
All right. Well, for now, we're going to have this boat set sail for another week. You can check us out, 5-Star Pod Wrestle on Twitter, Instagram, 5-Star Podcast of Wrestling. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have a lot of good old episodes there with not only Justin, but all of my great co-hosts over the years. For now, we're going to call it quits. We'll see you again next week. It'll be here on the 5-Star Podcast of Wrestling.